Hello there, friend, and welcome back to the Doing What Matters podcast, where we dive into conversations together, you and I, about this idea of living our lives from a place of rest and not rush. How do we do that in our real life, in our real self, in our real work? And that's the conversation we've been having here for all 5 years. Believe it or not, almost 300 episodes in some way, shape, or form. And today I want to talk to you about some shifts that are going to happen. I want to share with you a big shift that you're going to see starting with next week's episode as I shift into having a co host here on the podcast. I want to share with you what are the reasons why I am inviting a co host. If you've been following, and some of you have for almost 5 years, you've seen the podcast take two or three different iterations. This podcast actually started out talking about a tool that I absolutely love, that I've used in my life and in the work that I do with others for almost probably 12 or 13 years. The original podcast started out as the Enneagram in your real life. Those first 90 episodes are really around the tool of the Enneagram. I talk about the tool, how to use it in your life, both as a spiritual tool and as a personality tool, how it fits in. I interviewed lots of different people on those podcast episodes. Then I switched over and the podcast became the Real Life Process podcast. During those next 100 or so episodes, I really talked about the process that I have developed for life management. We also interviewed people during those episodes, but a lot of those episodes were solo episodes that I did or I did with people from my team. And we just talked about the real life process and the four components of the process: real life being, real life action, real life time, and real life living. And during that time, I was also writing the book called Do What Matters, Live from Rest, Not Rush. That book came out in 2022. That whole process during that part of the podcast was really developing out that content. We started our certification program where we certify other coaches and consultants and spiritual directors and different types of people that are in the helping profession, counselors, therapists, to use the content that we have in our life management rule of life system in the work that they do. All of that happened during the COVID years and the couple of years coming out of COVID. And then I don't know how many episodes ago, I would say maybe 50 a year ago, maybe a little bit more, I switched the podcast over to the Doing What Matters podcast. So that was the last iteration that I've done. So we've gone from Enneagram in your real life to the Real Life Process podcast to Doing What Matters podcast. And over the last year or so, I've just been having a few interview episodes, but mostly solo episodes, just talking about how we live out the process in our life or how I live it out in my life. The last year, I've really talked to people who have made that switch from living with their hair on fire to living more intentionally and choosing to do life a little bit differently. One of the people that I have had on the most over all of the last 5 years is my very good friend, Erica Vinson. About a week ago, I asked Erica, I said, "Hey, would you be interested in coming along and co hosting with me on the podcast? I am ready for that change. I am ready to just have somebody to have conversation with on the podcast." And I enjoy having guests on, but what I really enjoy doing is talking about everyday, ordinary life. To do that, I need someone to talk to. I talk to you each and every week, but it's a one-way conversation. So, that being said, I have asked Erica and she said yes, and I am super excited about that. But I want to set it up well and just share with you a little bit of backstory of Erica and I's journey. And then actually starting with episode 295, which will be next week, Erica will be joining me in these conversations that we're having around doing what matters, living from rest, not rush. So, here's some of the things that I'm super excited about bringing Erica on. Number one, Erica has been with me longer than anyone else on our team here at the Real Life Process. But not only that, her and I go back a long, long way, back to probably 2009, I think 2008. I don't know for sure. She can tell you next week when we talk. But crazily enough, she was the age that my daughter is now when I met her. So we have known her a long time. I think she was 27 or 28 years old when we met. And we have been doing life together for a very, very long time. We did ministry together at a church for several years. And then we didn't work together for a couple of years. And then as she was transitioning, off of the ministry team, I had left a few years before that. I asked her during that transition if she'd want to come and work part time here at the Real Life Process. And she said yes. And she has been with us ever since. And we'll talk about that more next week on the podcast. She's changed roles multiple times here on the team and has grown her own business as a coach. And that's one of the reasons I want to bring her onto this podcast is because of her unique perspective as a coach. She has really developed a beautiful skill set as a coach, and she's one of the best coaches that I know. She's certified both in the ICF, and then she serves as one of our master coaches here at the process, coaching our coaches that are certified. So one of the things that we do is we have a network community of coaches that are certified in our process. Erica heads that up as our executive director. And then she also coaches those people on a monthly basis that would like to have coaching. Another reason why I just really trust Erica to be in with me on these conversations with me and with you is because of her unique perspective to the world. She is wired totally differently than I, and you will see that as we dive into conversations together around different topics of doing life and work together is where we're going to go with this podcast as it continues on is that idea of balancing your real life. Both of us are entrepreneurs. Erica, more from a solopreneur standpoint, and then being a part of our team, and myself as an entrepreneur with a team of people. We both bring different perspectives into that idea. Her personality is different than mine, but we just have such a longstanding history that I think it's going to be fun to dive into these conversations. I am really excited about what is going to shift and change here on the podcast. I hope that you will stay close and listen in. You'll love getting to know Erica more. She has been the one guest that has been on the podcast over these last 5 years, more than any other guest on the podcast. And so you know her if you've been listening for a while. If not, you can go back and search her name and you can be able to check out some of the episodes that she's been on and get to know her if you would like to do that. But just keep listening. And you're going to get to know my very good friend, Erica Vinson, and all the beautiful things that she's going to bring to the podcast. We aren't exactly sure where our conversations will go, and that's one of the things that I love about the thought and the idea just brings me new energy to have a co-host because it brings out a different side of me as well. Sometimes I feel like I'm very serious here on the podcast, and that is not always my personality. Erica brings out that side for me of just having fun and relaxing and hanging out and bantering back and forth and just having a really good time. One of the places that you'll be able to connect with Erica and I both is in our online community. We started this platform earlier this year, back in January, and it continues to grow. It is a totally free platform that you can be a part of. It is a group of people, both entrepreneurs and business owners in all kinds of different spaces that are just choosing to do life differently. And we have those kinds of conversations and that kind of content over in our free community on the Circle platform. The easiest way to get there is to actually go to our website at thereallifeprocess.com and just click right there at the top on community. All you have to do is put in your email, create a password, and you are in. And we will greet you when you come. And I am so excited for her to start showing up with me each and every week here on the podcast. One of the reasons, if I'm super honest with you, of why I want to invite Erica to be in on these conversations with me every week is because of the level of trust that I have with her. She has been one of my longest friends, and not only in work, but in life together. And one of the things that we have done is create so many moments and memories. I'm sure that as you listen in, you're going to hear those come up in the conversations. We have had so much life together, both really hard seasons and wonderful seasons. This is going to be another moment for us as we journey into doing this podcast together, and her coming alongside with me in this podcast. It makes my heart full to just think of the beautiful conversations that we will have and the moments that we will create. And I just want to encourage you, if you have a good friend that you have not reached out to in a while, reach out. One of the things that Erica and I have in our story is that she lived here for years and years, and she moved away about 2 years ago. And maybe I'm being a little bit selfish, even inviting her to the podcast, is this is going to be a time for us to just get to hang out together as friends. Since she moved away, we still work together, obviously, in the work we do, but we don't just get to have these wonderful moments of conversation. And that is one of the things I am super excited about as I look forward to doing this podcast and having her come alongside and just be a part of it. So there are some selfish reasons behind, but if you have a friend like that you haven't reached out to in a long time, I just encourage you to do that. Send an email, send a text, make a phone call, and just reach out so that you can have a point of connection and create some moments together, schedule some time together, follow up with one another. Don't let that friendship go by the wayside. It is too important. And I bet if you're listening in, somebody is coming to mind right now. So go create the moment. And remember that every ordinary day has an extraordinary moment. You just have to look for them. Go call a friend and make that moment happen. Have a great week, everyone.